The RAB was on the ground at NAB Show 2026 in Las Vegas. The convention brought together nearly 60,000 attendees, including over 1,100 exhibitors, alongside high-profile keynote speakers and forward-looking sessions spanning broadcasting, media, advertising, and entertainment. The conversation throughout the week for radio was clear. The medium continues to evolve. The new opportunities and a shared commitment to moving forward with one voice. We are excited to share the latest Radio on Main Street podcast series, featuring conversations with leading voices across the industry. Explore perspectives on advertising and sales, digital, innovation, AI, storytelling, content creation, community service, and philanthropy. And you will hear firsthand the passion that is driving their work, along with their outlook on what's ahead for radio.
So I want to start out with a really strange question. So I'm talking to this friend of mine a couple of days ago here at NAB, and and we're talking about, what he says to me, he's like, remember the good old days when all we had to worry about were inline style tags, HTML, read a little JavaScript, and now it's just with AI and all this stuff that's happening in the technology space, it's just gotten so much more complicated. I just want to go back to the way things were. And I was kind of standing there and letting that sink in, and I'm thinking, I don't know how I feel about that. How do you feel about that?
I think I get excited by the complication. Well, I think there's, in some ways, the disruption's an opportunity. So I think I've tried to flip it into what's the opportunity that we have with AI. And I think there's this cool place now where software and technical capability is not as much of a barrier to entry, and builders with really great ideas that understand things well and know how to solve problems,
right,
now all of a sudden have really cool access to something incredibly powerful. And I think for our broadcast community, the really cool thing is it's going to unlock more channels for us to connect with people over time. And I think connection with people is going to become more and more important. And there's nobody better at doing that to lead us through this change, as there's sort of more agents and reliance on that I think we need the human connection. And we need broadcasters for that.
Yeah, I kind of feel that way about it too. I feel like we're at a point in time in tech where if you can dream it, you can do it.
Yes.
And we've never been there before. There's always been this barrier of technology that stands between the desire to create something and the actualization of whatever that technology is.
And a developer had the technical aptitude, but they didn't have the lived experience maybe sometimes inside sales or
right,
inside marketing
right,
or out there. And so it was harder for them. They were constantly having to translate and understand through communication. But now the people who've had lived experience, now all of a sudden they get to build and have the opportunity to solve problems that seemed difficult to solve before.
Right. Or if you're approaching it from a technology standpoint, being able to bring the AI in to help understand what that lived experience might be like,
yeah,
to introduce some of those more human elements into the application. It's like how might the user see this? Mm-hmm. How can we compensate or introduce some controls that will help offset those variables?
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, I thought it was such an interesting question. I'm so glad that you used the word disruption, because I feel like we're living through a time of a lot of disruption. A lot of the things that we've been working with over the last 10, 15 years are changing. So let's rewind the clock. Let's go back 10, 15 years in your career and talk about where you started. Yep. And because when I first got to know you, you were working at the local market level. You were doing some really interesting things from a local marketing perspective, infusing digital solutions into those. So take us back to that time. Tell me where you began.
Yeah, I think my journey in broadcast really started when I was a little kid. learning the marketing bridge because my dad carried it around in his truck when he was selling local advertising. I'd go to the cabin with my grandpa, and he'd feed me by going to live broadcast remotes. So that's kind of always a part of my journey that I wear as a badge with honor. Yes, I was energized by hot dogs and Coke, and occasionally popcorn if you got to the right dealership.
On a good day, right?
Yeah. And so I grew up around the vibrance and the energy and the excitement of broadcast and its ability to connect in the community. And then I was a stubborn person that wanted to blaze my own trail because I saw my grandfather do that, and I was inspired by it. And so I went into the auto industry and auto dealerships really by accident. It was to sell cars for 3 months until I became a teacher. And I never became a teacher, and instead I spent 7 years in auto dealerships.
Okay.
And I was making decisions about buying, marketing, and advertising. I was a manager at dealerships. I was a general manager. I was an owner at one point. But marketing was just one of the many hats that I was wearing while in dealerships. And that experience, before I came back into media and broadcast, was incredibly valuable because I got to see what it's like for a decision maker buying broadcast.
Right.
And what was the perception on the other side of the industry. And I got to learn a lot about what was important and how do you connect the value of this to their business.
Right.
Because that's the lens through which they're always going to look.
Well, let's stay there for a minute. So what did you learn about that? I mean, so when you were doing that, what was that experience like? I mean,
I think it was really easy to get excited about shiny objects like geofencing when it came out.
Sure.
And the auto industry, we're all really competitive, and we're obsessed with bright, shiny objects. And so diving into those types of things was always fun, but in the back of our minds, we were always going, but is this driving more leads? Is this getting us more of the types of clients that we want? The relationship clients versus the transactional clients.
Right.
And so we were always going, okay, I see the impressions and I see the clicks, and you're telling me that's important. You're telling me that I'm supposed to care about cost per click and all these different metrics that show me it's working. What I really cared about was, am I taking good care of my team members, and am I offering them enough opportunities to connect with enough people and sell enough cars and move enough vehicles? Because GM's also saying you've got to sell more cars. So I think always going, yes, I understand the value of the marketing metrics, but as a business decision maker, I really needed to be able to understand how that transcended into the business metrics that I measured. So I was always craving that, and I felt like in a lot of ways, that was in 2010 to 2016, and I feel like the industry's come a long way in being educators for our advertisers and helping them on that journey of understanding that connection.
I want to go back to so you were initially educated as a teacher, and then got into media marketing from there. Does that education as a teacher, how does that inform what you do now?
I think it's such an important part of what we're doing when we're telling our story.
Okay.
So I think as an educator, you've got to be able to, a few different things. You've got to be able to adapt to your classroom. Every classroom is going to have different needs, and that adaptability is important. It's served me well in broadcast with a lot of transformational change that has happened. But I think in education too, we have to educate the markets. Because again, a lot of the decision makers that we're working with, if we're thinking about our advertisers in the communities, a lot of what we're doing is helping them feel confident in the decision that they're making related to their marketing.
Sure.
And so in order to build that confidence, there has to be some elements of education that go into that.
Right. And as you moved through your career, you said you spent 7 years in automotive. Mm-hmm. And using that experience, bringing that forward over to the other side of the desk, if you will, how has that helped you?
I think in that way, that the education piece that I understood, that I was always craving a better understanding of, okay, I'm spending my money on this thing because it's really cool, but how much of my money should I be spending on it?
Right.
1 month I was in a tiny little town in northern Minnesota with an auto dealership, and we're spending $7,000 a month on Auto Trader in 2014. And it's the local radio stations would come in and pitch us $500 a month. And one of the things that I also learned is broadcasters weren't asking for enough money to make an impact.
Right.
And I think I learned that very quickly too, is to understand too what is necessary for each client to have an impact.
Right.
And how dominant do they want to be, and not making too many assumptions and asking good questions.
Right.
So I think it helped me to be able to sort of bring that lived experience of that craving, more strategic understanding, because I was spraying and praying. And it was absolutely random acts of marketing, and I didn't have time to go read marketing books. I had,
I think you might have just found the name for your marketing book, Random Acts of Marketing.
I think I'm robbing that from somebody else, and I don't know who to credit, but it was, I was doing that because I didn't have the time to figure it all out.
Right.
And I was desperately craving a guide to help with that.
Right.
So it absolutely informed how I built teams, and we built training for our teams even to be able to go out and transfer that confidence and build confidence with advertisers.
You know, I think for a lot of people, a lot of us working in maybe media in general, but radio specifically, there's not necessarily a linear path that got us where we are today,
Absolutely.
right? I know that you just did a number of roundtables at the mentoring sessions here at NAB. Sitting down with those young people to talk to them about their new careers in media. What advice did you share with them today about how to get to where they want to go next?
I think a lot of it was leaning into learning and using every experience as an opportunity to add value wherever you go,
right.
Figuring out how you can do that. But I think the non-linear path, as I've gotten older, I've appreciated the value of each stop along the way.
Right.
And each one seems to be scaffolding for the next one, and it prepared you
yeah.
well. If you spend that time to understand, okay,
right.
what was it that I just learned there? And that awareness when I moved into media that, okay, I have a different perspective to offer some of the people, and also I can learn from the people who haven't been on that side.
Right.
And so I think leaning into those shared experiences and journeys, and each of us being able to kind of help each other learn along the way.
Right. So important. All right, so let's kind of catch it up to current day. So today, right now, you're running your own digital agency. Is that, or a digital company?
Kind of. I'm helping a broadcaster in Baton Rouge is most of my work right now, and my role there is to help with digital.
Okay.
And initially it started as digital agency, and it has really transformed into AI implementation and work.
Tell me more.
So we're looking at how do we use this to create our own disruption? How do we use it effectively to create efficiency first as learning, and then also how do we build things that weren't possible before? Okay. And so a lot of it is diving into AI and going, how do we shorten the sales process in the early stage? Because I will tell you, drawing on my auto experience, I did not enjoy sitting down for 40-minute CNAs with 7 different media companies every month.
No.
I did not enjoy that process, but I understood the necessity of it. But how can we now lean into making things happen where we can inform and educate in a faster way? How can we do that? And it's really complicated, and it's kind of gnarly, but it's really fun and exciting too. Okay.
And how are you doing that? So,
part of it is one of the things that we've done is the proposal process. So it was a lot of proposals, because we need to build a high volume of them oftentimes, we would use templates.
Right.
And a lot of the proposals focus on how and what it was that we were recommending, instead of it being the why connected to a customer journey.
Right.
Part of that was also because that was complicated to build. And so what we're trying to do now is train different models, whether it be Claude or ChatGPT, inside an environment, and we're trying to train it to think like we do when we're building strategies and media plans, and to build personas on the fly. So we're trying to teach it to do complicated knowledge work so that we can have something that a salesperson could potentially be building with a client as they go, rather than 40 minutes, let me come back in 7 days and present to you. Let's build this together right now.
Okay.
And we're teaching it how to do the research, how to build the persona, how to choose which tactics and which strategies make sense and why do they make sense. So we're trying to enable sellers to be able to have that conversation right away.
Can you translate that to a salesperson sitting down with a client? What would that interaction look like?
It might even just be they've got their phone and they're recording themselves and they're taking the messy notes from that and dumping it in, and then the AI agent or whatever it might be would be able to then take that and go, here's what I heard, here's the research on your competitors, here's the market, and it's validating at each stage and asking for human input. So the advertiser can see that in real time. And I think part of the value of it in this way is we get to show advertisers that we're leaning in to technology, and we can lean into technology, and then they're going to also want to lean into you as a guide.
Right.
Because they're thinking about, how do I implement this for my own workflows? And if you get to be a guide and walk them through, here's how we build marketing plans. Here are some of the things, and we've spent a whole bunch of time onboarding this thing and teaching it what we know about marketing and what we know about this region. And so now I'm going to walk you through this process. Now all of a sudden you got to be a guide for business intelligence too.
So I have you here, and I'd be remiss if I didn't spend a little bit of time together with you talking about what broadcasters are getting right and maybe where we need some room for improvement with AI. So let's kind of shift gears over to that. It seems like a really good transition point. Broadcasters are, kind of all over the road in terms of where we are with AI at this point. Mm-hmm. Some are dabbling in it, some are maybe using a little co-pilot, some are full on into ChatGPT, some are writing code, right? What are we doing well right now? As you kind of look around the broadcast world, are we getting much right at this point in your mind?
I think if we're trying, and if everybody's trying, we're getting something right. I mean, there's always got to be the step one, and that's the leaning in.
Right.
And it's a matter of, the really interesting part that I've learned about AI is when it feels mysterious, I found myself just peppering it with questions and saying, tell me more about how you work. Explain this to me, help me understand this. And then I started also flipping it on, okay, pull out from me what you need and having it ask me questions too. So that there's kind of, we're both learning together, and I'm giving it like a human persona, which is really odd and weird. But
is your AI a he or a she?
I think it's Claudette usually is how I do. I mean,
okay.
Really creative, right? Just putting an et on the end of Claude. So I think leaning in is really the first part, and I think we're getting it right. I think if we have this sense that we're behind and it cripples us into inaction or uncertainty, that's when we're going to start falling behind.
Yeah.
And I think we just have to start taking one step at a time, and everybody's at a different stage right now. There's no wrong place to be.
Right.
And the reality is, with the way these tools work, you can catch up really fast. And sometimes people are going to skin their knees in front of you, and you're going to be able to learn faster. I think there's a lot of broadcasters that didn't get into digital as fast, but maybe we're able to catch up really quickly.
Right.
But I would just encourage everybody that the more you can be learning right now, the better and easier it's going to be as this technology keeps advancing, and it's changing really, really fast. But each entry point into it is something that's going to help you in the next change.
Yeah. I'll never forget going to a programmers conference about a year and a half ago, and the person who was doing a session was demonstrating how to write a great prompt. And then he took his prompt and he put it back into an AI and said, make this a better prompt. And it was like this moment of, this aha moment where it's like, oh my gosh, of course AI could teach you how to work with it more effectively.
Yeah, I have a skill every week inside Claude, and the skill is on a schedule, and it goes through and looks at all of my conversations and recommends what skills I should build. And skills are essentially a template for a workflow, kind of.
Right.
And so
brilliant.
Anyway, I'm teaching it how to go, okay, tell me what I can do better.
Get better at this, please, because you're making me work way too hard.
Yeah, how do I understand AI better? Well, I'm going to ask AI.
Exactly. Okay, so where is there some room for improvement in your mind?
I think it is, there's interesting, I feel like a lot of pilots are happening inside companies with people experimenting. And I think that's a good thing. I think a lot of those pilots are going to struggle to turn into something that has real business impact and innovation if we don't have executive leadership buy-in and understanding.
Okay.
And so I feel like there has to be a top-down effort in really embracing and understanding what opportunities there are right now, and really getting educated on what does my company need to do to be able to embrace this safely and also drive innovation? How do we balance these two things of innovation and governance and wrestling with that? But we need executive leaders to be really involved with this. I don't think it's a thing that we can just defer to a handful of nerdy people in the company, and I'm a nerd, so that's a compliment. That everybody that's a nerd in their company, it's a badge of honor.
You put me on that list too. I totally get it. Yeah, so it's not a case where you can have the couple of people in the back room that are experimenting with AI and they get really excited about something and bring it to the front office, and the front office smiles and goes, "That's really nice work. Now please go back to your room." And that's not going to work, right?
Yeah, because I think we can't think about having an AI strategy. I think we have to think about what is our strategy,
right,
and how can AI help. And also, when we're thinking about our strategy, what is AI going to change that's going to create new problems that we need to be able to solve?
Right.
And so executives are in the best position to be able to help create that vision,
right,
and help the organization. But I don't think we can put AI in a silo or a department and say, we've got our AI strategy, we're good.
Right.
We have to have a business strategy, and AI has to be integrated. I saw somebody at a conference, I think from McDonald's last October, and she was mentioning it. She said, people started having at the dawn of internet strategy. And she goes, no one has an internet strategy anymore. It's just an embedded part of what we do.
Right.
And AI is already that same thing, I think, in a lot of ways. And the faster we get to that realization that it's just always going to be a part of everything we do instead of thinking it as something separate.
Right. And it's also, I think, true that you can only carry it so far without having a discussion of investment.
Yes.
And that requires executive leadership.
Yes. And trying to understand what the budget should be and what you need is really difficult, but you got to start.
Yeah. I mean, there's trade-offs, right? You have to decide what, what's important now, and what are we going to invest in, and that is something that can't be made outside the executive offices.
And part of that investment can be giving people permission to spend time experimenting.
Exactly.
And that can be one of the most valuable investments you make. It doesn't have to be a sizable monetary investment or an infrastructure change. It can really be as simple as, I want you to start exploring and experimenting, and you're creating your little AI council that's sharing notes and ideas back. But giving that permission to your teams is really a powerful step.
Kelli, it's been such a treat to sit down and talk to you. Thank you so much for joining us on Radio on Main Street. I really appreciate it. And
thanks, Dave.
Enjoy the rest of the show.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.